Hey everyone, this is Curtis. Hope everyone is doing well and enjoying their day. This is my second live video, so bear with me. I'm not the most tech savvy person, so bear with me. But I'm a little late. A lot of people have been talking about, and I'm laughing at the fact that I'm late. I tend to procrastinate. This is a serious topic, though, but I know I'm a little late to the topic of R. Kelly, the abuse of Black girls, and just to the whole discussion. But I felt inspired. I did watch the series, and on a personal note, something that, when this whole R. Kelly thing first came out a long time ago, I remember I was in college. I was actually at Hampton University at the time. And R. Kelly used to make, dope songs. He used to make really good songs. And I remember telling friends, I'm like, well, it's kind of fucked up because, he's doing all this stuff to young girls, but, it's like it's not an issue. I mean, like, we're all dancing to his music. Like, he ain't doing none of this shit. So I know it was an issue for me personally back then. It's something that, I found very troubling that, he was doing all these things to young girls. And, and he was just, it's like, oh, well, it's the pop, it's sad. Let's step in the name of love. But as with all things, particularly when it comes to, the media and all these other stories, there is a subtext. Subtext meaning, the story. What's the story about? And please forgive me, I might totally fuck this up. But essentially, there's what's being talked about, and then there's a deeper agenda going on, if you will. I don't know, subtext, context, what have you. So, I was thinking the other day about this story, and this kind of reminded me of the story of, if you all remember the story of, Bring Back Our Girls in Nigeria, where Boko Haram had kidnapped, all these girls and, sold them into sex slavery, and, just horrifying. And it's the same thing with the whole R. Kelly situation. What happened to these women and girls was horrifying. R. Kelly definitely does not get a pass from me. Like I said, I've always personally found it very, what he did was just appalling and disturbing and totally, completely fucked up. And then we'll get into, the reasons, obviously why he's been doing some of the things he's been doing later on. But regardless, what he did was fucked up. But I remember the Boko Haram story and, bring back our girls, bring back, it was all this, all this little fake outrage about girls in Nigeria. Since when does American media give a fuck about girls in Nigeria? They don't give a fuck about Black girls here. They don't. Except when it's convenient, when they have an agenda, which I'll talk about later. But I remember, okay, bring back our girls. And I remember thinking, there's a lot going on with, the sex trafficking. I mean, sex trafficking of girls is actually a $100 billion business around the world. It's a big business involving the United Nations, the U.S. military, major corporations. There's actually a really good film you all could check out called The Whistleblower. I watched it on Amazon Prime the other day. It talks about how UN peacekeepers in, I believe, in Serbia, Yugoslavia, back like in the early 90s, were like trafficking young girls, and they were just raping them, and some of the companies that are involved were defense contractors that got billions of dollars from the U.S. government. So, when we're talking about sexual exploitation of girls and women in particular, I mean, that's $1 billion business. So, for all this, and most of the victims are Black, and they are indigenous and women of color, but it's $1 billion business. And, and you have major companies, billionaires, corporation institutions involved in this modern day sex slavery. You know, it's estimated close to about, you know, millions upon millions of girls all throughout the world are sex slaves. So, but I remember the story that came out, and, you know, there's all this outrage. Oh, bring back our girls. And, you know, you start hearing Hillary Clinton, some of these politicians start talking about it. I'm like, okay, you know, what's the real reason why they want to, Nigeria is there you go. Nigeria is the world's largest oil producing country. So they want to use the whole humanitarian, you know, save our girls bullshit as the pretext for further colonization of Africa. That's what it was about. It wasn't about no damn Boko Haram, because Boko Haram actually been doing terrorist acts and actually have been kidnapping and slaughtering young boys for a long time before the media ever got involved. But they found a convenient story that would generate outrage, you know, particularly when we're talking about girls, you know, because for the most part, boys are disposable. Oh, you know, somebody comes in and kills some boys and, you know, sexually assaults them, rapes them, but, you know, young girls, you know, that really, you know, because now you're getting into, you know, you get a lot of elite feminists that are going to get involved and bring back our girls. And of course, naturally, Black women, particularly here in the States, are going to get involved, reasonably so, because, you know, hey, you know, Black girls are being victimized. But again, you know, some of these elite power players here in America, it wasn't about no damn girls. It's about recolonizing Africa and stealing the resources, which is the exact same thing they're trying to do right now in Venezuela. We're trying to bring about regime change so we can steal the resources. So, you know, whenever these stories come out, particularly in the white media, you know, there's always the presented story and then the hidden story. You know, always keep that in mind. You know, so don't get caught up in, you know, all the Black girls mad and all the fake outrage, because the white media don't give a fuck. The producers of this particular Surviving R. Kelly series, which again I did watch, I did see all 6 episodes, is Disney. You know, major media company corporation, and the Lifetime Network. And Lifetime, you know, they tend to make series targeted towards women, and you know, series where women are getting beat up. So my mother loves Lifetime, so she really watches it. But again, you know, their agenda is, you know, it's not about saving Black girls and, you know, helping Black girls and, you know, and trying to, you know, highlight the abuse of Black girls, because, you know, as I mentioned sex trafficking is, you know, is I think a $50 billion a year industry. But also, you know, the rape of Black girls is the basis of our global economy. If you know, right now I'm actually communicating to you on a laptop, an Apple laptop to be exact. And this Apple laptop could not have been produced if not 1 million Black girls in the Congo were not raped by U.S. trained militias. In order so the U.S. trained militias, the United States, and all these major corporations can facilitate the wholesale theft of the Congo, stealing all the coltan, the tungsten, and all the minerals that are used for this high-tech death economy that we currently live in, and death society that we live in. And you know, and that's one of the biggest untold stories of our entire decade, is that, you know, literally 5 million people have gotten slaughtered in the Congo. So corporations, the United States, Britain, and all the imperial powers can steal the resources, particularly, you know, all the resources that are used to make drones, laptops, smartphones, etc. All the high-tech bullshit that we have that we're so addicted to. Swipe left. All the high-tech bullshit that we're addicted to is produced on the rape of millions of Black girls, and also men as well too, in the Congo. So, you know, you're not going to hear Disney talk about that, of course. They're not going to talk about that. But yeah, you know, hey, you know, we live in a culture that is rife with anti-Black male propaganda. And let me say this, you know, because I know, well, you know, hold on, Curtis, hold on. You know, you're saying, you know, sounds like you're trying to. No, again, as I said from the outset, you know, I think what R. Kelly did was, you know, he's a pedophile. You know, he's a pedophile. He's obviously a psychopath. You know, we could talk about the reasons why he did what he did, you know, which I would definitely like to elucidate on. But what he did was wrong. And I'm not of the mindset that, oh, well, because white men do it, or it's the economic factor that we should ignore black men's crimes. No, I'm not of that ilk. But I'm not also of the ilk of, okay, well, let's demonize black men. That's unhealthy as well too. Largely due to something that I remember having in my mind a long time ago, that because of racism, black men oftentimes, they become the face of sexual predation. This has gone on since early 1800s. When you had white men that were literally raping millions of black women, during slavery and during the slave trade. And somehow black women became the sexual predators and became the ones that wanted to rape white women. It was like a reversal of reality. It's like we have entire generations of black women that have gotten raped, sexually abused, and we have the offspring to produce it, myself included. I have white, I have white European ancestry, as does millions of black people, as a result of rape and sexual violence. But yet, black men become the face of sexual predation and sexual predators, and they're out to get white women, and it's a reversal of reality. The same thing, because oftentimes, and I'll add this as well too, the white media, they tend to, they want to, black girls are being sexually abused. This is horrifying, and and these black male predators, but the white media will put out images, and that's the dominant image of black women in particular, that black women, essentially are sexually promiscuous sex animals. There's a video right now that, a lot of people are tweeting out the pictures of Cardi B and another young lady, they're wearing like animal costumes as they're twerking. All these black women are half naked and twerking. So, the white media, that's the image of the black woman, is that she's a sex object. She's a sexual animal. She wants to be sexually exploited, and abused. So, when it happens, she must have had it coming, because, black women are hypersexual. They want to be raped. I mean, that was the white supremacist stereotype of black women that was used to justify white men's nearly 500-year rape of black women. So, the white media continues to put that out to this day. They put it out in pornography. They put it out in music videos. I mean, you had Halle Berry. She won the Oscar for literally begging a white man who killed her husband to fuck her. So, this image of black women and girls as, sex animals, and, wanting to get it. That is the dominant image of black women. That's a sexual stereotype. And a good resource on that is the book called Brainwashed by, I believe his name is Thomas Burrell. Thomas Burrell, really, really good book. Talks about that. And, to this day, I mean, that's the image. You have pornography. Let me tell you something, I'll give you the name of the film too, is Let Me Tell You Something About Black Chicks, which features, this was made in 1989 to show you how, despicable and disgusting, the white supremacist media is. They made a film in 1989, a pornographic film about white men in a hood who were raping black women. And the women were like, they were moaning and groaning, like they were enjoying it. And they were, they were begging for it. They wanted to be raped. And I'm, marinating on that for a minute. A pornographic film where a black woman wants and enjoys being raped by a white Klansman. A white Klansman. Think about that for a minute. And how incredibly offensive that is. And these white producers, were, they thought it was hilarious. They thought it was like a joke. They thought it was great. Imagine Jewish women starring in a pornographic film in which they're being raped by Nazis and enjoying it and moaning. That company would be, and that the person who made that and distributed that, probably any store that fucking sold that would be arrested, put in jail. Due to the power of, due to the outrage, and oftentimes due to the power that Jews collectively have, not to be, not to demonize, not to be quote unquote anti-Semitic, but just being real. Like, they own wealth, they own property, they control, have a large influence upon a lot of media outlets. But yes, I mean, that would be totally unacceptable. That would not be considered to be sexual liberation, which a lot of these white feminists, say about pornography and about Black women starring in films where they're being called a nappy-headed hoe by some white man, or a nappy-headed hoe just in general. They call this, this is liberating for a Black woman to be a prostitute or a sex slave, to be starved of pornography and degraded, and to be a stripper and to be degraded, and and have men throw money at them. It's sexually liberating, according to these white feminists, because this is a business. So again, Black women's bodies are disposable. So I mean, that's one part of the narrative when we're talking about R. Kelly. Black women and their bodies and their sexuality are disposable. Black women were the ultimate sex slaves. They were the original sex slaves and the original sex objects. And they are still, to this day, the original sex objects of this globalized death economy. But I digress. R. Kelly, became, R. Kelly and all these other Black men, they became the face of Me Too. And again, I remember watching this film, and the word predator was used a lot. And one thing about programming and just in television programming and just any type of programming, what tends to happen is that if you want to, I think what Joseph Goebbels said, if you want to tell a lie, I don't remember the exact quotation. If you want to tell a lie, then just keep repeating it. Essentially, if you want to tell a big lie, just keep repeating it, and people won't question it. So, and throughout the series, remember now, this is on Lifetime. This, Lifetime's owned by Disney, a major media monopolist conglomerate. They have their own history of pedophilia and racism. What Disney, Walt Disney was a huge white supremacist. And even to this day, a lot of those Disney films, they portray, Black people as predators. In The Lion King, the hyenas, the hyenas were meant to sound like inner city Black kids. So it's right. So, Disney has a huge history of racism. But, the word predator, you kept hearing that word, predator, 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 predator. God damn, okay. I started thinking about, the most recent election, because it's election time. So, what tends to happen during election season, there's always a lot of diversions, because there's always a lot of diversions, on both sides, by Republicans and by Democrats. The biggest Democratic diversion now is Donald Trump. Democrats don't need to have any beneficial or even progressive platforms anymore. All they need to say is that I'm not Donald Trump. And on the Republican side, say, okay, hey, fuck immigrants, whatever. So a lot of diversions. But I remember hearing the word predator a lot. I started thinking about, the Hillary Clinton's comments, which are indicative of toxic white feminism. Toxic white feminism. That, just be on the lookout for that word. It's live and well. Because, the white feminist movement, it was a white power movement. You can look at the book by The Man Not by Dr. Tommy Curry. And he talks about, white feminism and how it was rooted and based and was interested in expanding white supremacy, and the imagery that they use was the image of the black male predator. So it wasn't just black, white men, using this to justify, to falsely accuse black men of rape and then justify lynching them, which is a form of racial terrorism. This is used by white women to, for them to get more power and to get more, for them to get more power and to get more rights. So, I kept hearing the word predator, predator, predator. And I started thinking about the Hillary Clinton's, super predator comments and how that generated outrage. I was like, well, damn, this is clever. Because, a black man now is being referred to as a predator nonstop, over and over and over. It's literally programming people's subconscious that black men are predators, which again, this goes back to the old stereotype of black men. Whereas, okay, but in the series, you have black people saying this. You can have a white feminist or Bill Clinton or Donald Trump saying this because they're rightly probably would be outraged. When Ronald Reagan was talking about predators, criminal predators, everyone knew he was talking about black men. When Hillary Clinton was talking about super predators, everyone knows she was talking about black men. But when it's repeated in this white media series about predators, sexual predators, which R. Kelly, I do agree was, in the sense he was a pedophile. When it's being talked about in the series, then in a sense, it's hiding the agenda. And the agenda of the series was, again, a form of anti-black male propaganda. But now it has a twist to it. Because, a long time ago, when the film Birth of a Nation came out, which, was probably one of the most powerful forms of racist propaganda ever disseminated. It was so powerful and so popular that Woodrow Wilson, who was a Klansman and a white supremacist, actually had a screening of the film in the White House. And this film was used to galvanize and to actually, dramatically increase Klan membership all throughout the country. That one film, became a huge, you literally had lynchings. White supremacists would see this film and then would go upon lynching black folks. Not only after that, 4 years after that film, you had the Red Summer, where you literally had thousands of black folks die during acts of racial terrorism after World War II. And Birth of a Nation was put out right before that act of racial terrorism. I was reading a really good book that talked about, I can't think of the name of it now, but it's talking about something about the Red Summer and black people's resistance to it. I can't think of the name, but now when I recently went to Ghana, I was there for almost 2 weeks, and I read this book, when I was headed to Ghana, and it talked about how the birth of, the Birth of a Nation, talked about that film, how it was being, it was still widely popular around 1919. When you had all these acts of, white supremacists, of white terrorism all throughout the country. It was like a coordinated attack. You had all these, lynchings and black people being attacked and being lynched and being terrorized and being killed, and black towns being burned to the ground. I think in 1921, you had Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is 2 years, after 1919. But again, 6 years after the Birth of a Nation film came out. You had that black town literally burned to the ground. So this film dramatically increased, white supremacists and white terrorism all throughout the country. And it was hugely popular. And it was obvious that, this film was definitely about demonizing black people, in particular, demonizing black men and using that as justification for white terrorism. So, so surviving R. Kelly now is a modern day Birth of a Nation. But now, like I said, it has different twists to it. Because a long time ago, in the 1980s, you had the film Color Purple, another anti-black man propaganda. But see, now, it's easy to demonize black men under the guise of intersectional politics or gender politics. That's the new wave. That's the new form of white supremacy. It's not about, fuck you, you know, black men, you know, because you ain't shit and you're trying to break white women. It's, oh, well, you know, black men, you know, they are the white men. They are the white men of the black community. You know, they're beating up black women like in The Color Purple, or they're raping and preying upon black girls. That's the new gender politics. And you have a lot of black feminists and black feminism, which is rooted in that. It's rooted in the ideology that, you know, that black men in particular are, you know, and you see articles about this all the time, black men are the oppressors of the black community. So, you know, and so again, they're using all the same stereotypes and ideology which comes out of white feminism and just old traditional white supremacy, and now it has a black face to it. Has a black face to it, in the, you know, which the R. Kelly series did. It had black faces railing on R. Kelly. Had black women railing upon this black man. The Me Too founder railing upon R. Kelly. You know, the Root articles and black feminism railing upon black men as the oppressors. And using misleading information to justify these conclusions. And using statements that, oh, well, you know, the black woman is the most underprotected. You know, they all, you know, Malcolm X said that. When really Malcolm X, you know, he comes from a, you know, he was saying that in the context of being within a patriarchal organization like the Nation of Islam. In the sense that, you know, they believe, you know, they believe in providing and protecting women. You know, I'm not here to get into critiques about the Nation of Islam. In a sense, and that is a form of patriarchy. Provide and protect is very much a form of patriarchy. But again, you know, back in 1950s, when black women were getting raped by white women, by white men in particular, which a really good film on that was The Rape of Recy Taylor, a lot of black women will find this attractive. So in a sense, he was saying that as a recruitment for black women to join the Nation of Islam. He wasn't saying that as a statement of fact, because a statement of fact would actually see that, you know, it's actually not, you know, black women who are the bottom of the American social system. It's actually black men in terms of incarceration, rates of abuse, police killings, the death penalty, sexual violence. You know, more black men in this country get raped than black women. If you include military and prison rapes, which oftentimes is excluded from the data sets on rape and sexual violence. So that's it. This is the new form of anti-black women propaganda. It's not just, you know, rooted in traditional white supremacy. You know, that still exists. And white supremacists still, you know, do use that. You know, they still talk about, oh, black men, you know, they want to rape, you know, they still use that. But now it's all, you know, it's people like R. Kelly or Chris Brown or Bill Cosby. And, you know, and people like, and let me say, Bill Cosby is guilty as hell. He raped about almost 30 different, you know, black women, you know, including a lot of white women as well, too. But again, you know, I was never a fan of Bill Cosby. You know, personally, I always thought he was guilty as shit. You know, he admitted to it. He admitted to under oath that what he did, you know, essentially drugging and raping those women. But, you know, I'm seeing, you know, again, I mean, in all these stories and all these storylines, there is overall agenda to demonize black men. You know, because this, you know, society is rooted in racism and white supremacy. So the agenda is not to hold all men accountable, or to hold rich white men accountable, or, you know, talk about the rape of black girls in the Congo, or the billion-dollar business on the sex trafficking, I didn't even include prostitution. I'm just including sex slavery now, because prostitution is another thing. You know, that is sex trafficking. And many, you know, white feminists consider this to be a form of sexual liberation, you know, because they benefit from it. They're not the ones being prostituted and trafficked. A lot of these elite white women, they're not dealing with that. And, you know, and they actually make money from a lot of this stuff. They make money from the pornography, from the strip clubs, and from a lot of these brothels in some of these more liberal democracies, like in the Netherlands and some of these other countries. They make money from it. They own the brothels themselves. So that's the agenda here. This is not about black girls. This is not about, you know, bringing, holding R. Kelly accountable. This is about the demonization of Black men. And, all these movements, Me Too time, they're all controlled by white women. And Black men have historically been used by white feminists in particular for them to advance their agenda, to increase their power, and to gain more rights. They gain their rights on the expense of Black men. But, but of course, but that's why oftentimes they have to put out these stories about Black Girls Matter to kind of recruit Black women onto their side. Because for the most part, Black women have not benefited an ounce. Black women still own no wealth. White women are the second wealthiest group in the world. Black women still have no wealth. They have nothing. They have not gained an ounce from feminism. They haven't, because it wasn't designed for them. It wasn't designed for their liberation at all. And in a sense, they've actually, in many respects, due to a lot of these comments and thoughts about intersectionalism, they've actually been hurt by it, because they're feeling like, oh, oh man, I'm being attacked. When in reality, it's their men that are being attacked and being put in prison. So now, our entire families are broken up and destroyed as a result of it. You have millions of Black women who are forced, who again don't have men to date, and are forced to raise kids by themselves. Not because of the man's fault, because of the system's fault. And I think that's oftentimes, what people don't want to deal with. It's easy to talk about R. Kelly but again, I mean, for me, when I look at these stories, I always look at that, this is a systemic problem. Sexual violence is a system. It's a cultural problem, and it's a systemic problem. We live in a culture that praises and glorifies sex predators. We have Columbus Day. The original rapist and sex predator went about raping, thousands of went about raping thousands of indigenous women when we first landed here. We're about to celebrate President's Day. All the presidents were slave masters, and thus all of them were rapists as well too. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. I'll never forget. A long time ago when I was younger, I remember seeing like a series. It was like, I think it was on like Lifetime or one of these other little kind of gimmicky little women's channels, where they showed Sally Hemings and Thomas Jefferson as like having a romance. Thomas Jefferson, he used to cross the world, and he loved her. And I thought about that when I thought about this whole R. Kelly series. I'm like, that was the biggest piece of propaganda ever. They're literally romanticizing sexual terrorism and rape. They're romanticizing it. They're sanitizing it. And I remember seeing this when I don't remember the name of the series, but I remember explicitly seeing this when I was maybe 13 or 14. I remember seeing this. And again, I didn't know, of course I was ignorant, but but I remember thinking about this after this, during this whole R. Kelly situation. And in all of the discussion about it. And yeah, again, I mean, does white men's crime excuse Black men's crimes? No. But again, we have to be realistic that the people the people who own Disney, these major stockholders and corporate executives, they are committing all types of sex crimes. They do it and they get away with it because money controls politics, and they're not gonna, no one's gonna hold them accountable. No one's gonna hold them accountable because they own the politicians, they own the prosecutors. Like Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein was a billionaire pedophile that used to have that raped and sexually exploited hundreds of girls. I mean, actually was trafficking these girls, and he was trafficking like girls from Europe. And taking them on private airplanes, and where they would get raped. And on these airplanes where I think Alan Dershowitz, the O.J. Simpson's former attorney, Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, all these elite white men. We're getting quote unquote massages from these young girls. I mean, I remember reading about the story in the Miami Herald. But because, he's a billionaire and he's well connected and Donald Trump and Clinton are involved, nah, he cannot be held accountable because, he knows, hey, if they really start digging into this case and they look into his sex slavery and his rape of all these girls, then some other names gonna come up. And remember now, Bill Clinton, a serial rapist, was actually considered to be a feminist by, Gloria Steinem and all these other mainstream feminists. In early 1990s, they put out articles saying that, Bill Clinton was great and, his sex crimes against women are fine. Why? Because he put out the Violence Against Women's Act and he was a so-called feminist. A serial rapist, Bill Clinton, was defended by mainstream feminists, which again is designed to show you that this whole thing of notion of feminism is not about women. It's not about women's rights. It's about elite white women in particular, but elite white women especially, expanding their power, their privilege, and their wealth, and making sure that their allies, whether they be male or female, be protected. And since, Clinton was on board and he passed the Violence Against Women's Act and he was associated with NOW, the National Organization of Women, and, he supported Planned Parenthood. Okay, well, he gets a pass. Donald Trump don't get no pass though, because he's against all that. But Bill Clinton gets a pass. A serial rapist. So yeah, this series, that is the underlying story. This is another form of anti-Black male propaganda. That's being, and that's why, I mean, it's no surprise that this series has gotten so much, attention and, because again, that fits into the narrative. But like I said, now it has different twists. The new twist is Me Too, Time's Up, feminism. And it's amazing because like under the age of Trump, Trump is a serial rapist. He's a pedophile as well too. I remember seeing the really good documentary. You should all check it out. Fahrenheit 11/9. I've seen some stuff about this before. I mean, but Trump and his daughter, it's like they have like a really incestuous pedophilia type relationship. He'd be like rubbing on her booty and, she'd be sitting in his lap. I mean, all types of, just really sadistic and disgusting type shit. It's something that Trump is doing. So Trump done raped about 20 different women. But under the age of Trump, you have all this white nationalism and white supremacist and, all this stuff, all these hate crimes going on. The guy from Empire recently was a victim of a hate crime. They called him, the N-word and put a rope around his neck. And, so you have all these hate crimes going on, going on under Trump and all this, and Trump being a misogynist, which he is, and all this stuff, but somehow, Black men now are the haters, whether they're anti-Semitic, they're engaging in hate speech against Israel, they're homophobic, they're misogynistic, they're patriarchal, they hate women and girls, they're the oppressors of Black people. It's like, again, it's the reversal of reality. And it's just fascinating that all this is happening under an overt, patriarchal, pedophile, serial rapist, white supremacist president, and all his little minions that support him, that are pretty much all doing the same shit. I mean, it's fascinating. It's fascinating. And again, not to diminish the crimes of some Black men, but, it's just of how it's like, Black men, Bill Cosby, Chris Brown, of how they become the faces. But again, if you understand the history of white feminism, and how, they called for lynching 1,000 Black men a week. Some of these white feminists, you can read the book. What's the name of that book? Oh man, it's by author is actually Crystal Femster. I can't the name of the book now, but yeah, Crystal Femster. She's out of Yale. She wrote a really good book talking about one of those white feminists, and she was another activist. I can't, the name slipped in my mind now, but it'll come to me. The book will come to me. A really good book that I kind of read that was talking about how, you know, actually it was actually black women who were saying Me Too for the longest and were ignored by white feminists, was I think at the end of a dark street. Yeah, at the end of a dark street. And the author of that book was actually featured in The Rape of Recy Taylor, which is a really, really good documentary, excellent documentary. You know, what happened with her, she was raped by 4 different white men during Jim Crow, which was extremely common. You know, and it was a really sad story. Just it was you know, what happened with her was absolutely horrifying. You know, it was a really tragic story what happened to Recy Taylor. She recently passed away. You know, may she rest in peace. But yeah, really sad story. But yeah, I can't think of the name of the book now. It'll come to me. But yeah, you know, so you know, I'm seeing this and I'm like, this is not, this ain't cool. This ain't cool. You know, and you know, I kind of hesitate to make this video too, as a side note, you know, because I knew it was going to generate some controversy. But you know, when I see things, you know, I feel I had to speak out on it. I had to speak out on it. You know, because I started thinking about, the culture of pedophilia that we live in. The culture of pedophilia. And I mentioned how before, you know, the image of Black women and girls, you know, we live in a culture of pedophilia. You know, I remember watching the series about surviving R. Kelly, and, you know, and they're talking about Aaliyah. And I remember hearing about that story when I was younger as well, too. Aaliyah and how she married R. Kelly. And that's something I looked up as well, too. I mean, like throughout America, there are tens of thousands of child marriages of like young girls that get married. And it's perfectly legal. Perfectly legal. Like, you know, in all these different states, New Jersey, all throughout America, there's a lot of child marriages going on. You know, they ain't really being talked about by the media. A lot of that shit going on. But again, I digress. Aaliyah she was featured in the series, and I remember thinking, like, you know, Aaliyah, you know, she, you know, they made her look really like older. You know, she's always wearing makeup and, you know, and oftentimes baggy clothes. You know, and you see like certain images of Aaliyah, like in the series, where obviously she looked really young. But then, you know, the media, you know, MTV, BET, make her look older. And I remember discussing with my spouse of how, you know, I remember, she made the song "One in a Million," and she was laying in the car and all these, she was wearing black, and, you know, she was wearing, you know, she was, you know, dressed in very, revealing clothing. I think she was 17 at the time. And there was all these men around her, and she was just, you know, making a very sexual song. So we live in a culture, actually, which sexualizes Black girls in particular by making them, and the media does this by making them older. You know, look at Beyonce. Look at Beyonce when she first started off. You know, she first started off with Destiny's Child. She was 16 at the time. You know, but she had her ass all out, titties all out, and hey, I'm not here to shame her for this, but I'm saying she was made to look like a grown-ass woman, even though she was still a teenager. They sexualize young girls in our culture by making them appear older. They sexualize them. You know, and I thought about that Aaliyah, and I'm like, yeah, you know, she was made to look like older, and she was making, she was making this song about sex, and, you know, she was only like 17 years old. You know, and so I started thinking about, you know, how, like, yeah, like it wasn't just, it wasn't just R. Kelly sexually exploiting her. It was the whole music, and it was the whole entertainment and music industry that was sexualizing this young, talented singer for profit. Which again, and what happens is when you sexualize young girls, it encourages their pedophilia. Did you know, and I'm about to drop this back on y'all, the #1 form of porn in this country is teenage porn. You can look it up. Teenage porn. And this pseudo child pornography, which, you know, child pornography is banned, even though the Supreme Court's kind of reducing restrictions on that. They're trying to reduce it. Pseudo child pornography is the #1 form of porn in this country. You know, teenage sluts, teenage whores, you know, whatever, you know, all types of degrading stuff, you know, about young women. And in these pornographic films, it shows these young girls either being, they're being taken advantage of by teachers, by coaches, and by grown-ass men. And the young girls are actually made to, they're made to look younger. They're grown women, but they're actually made to look younger, which again is another part of our culture is that, so we live in a culture which sexualizes young girls, with all these beauty pageants, all this it's really that kind of disturbing, pedophilia type stuff that goes on in our society. You got little six, story of JonBenet Ramsey, she was like 6 years old wearing all this makeup and, all these little beauty pageants and, and she's walking around in front of all these grown ass men. Really disturbing, like I said, we live in a culture of pedophilia in America, a culture of pedophilia, a culture of sexual abuse and just general abuse of children. Because for the most part, children in this society are still considered to be property of their parents, property of the government, property of corporations, they're just property. So they can be abused at will, sexually abused at will. They have children in the society have no rights. So, when we talk about pedophilia, I mean, none of this stuff is surprising to me. Unfortunately, it's just because it's the culture we live in. But yeah, going back to the pornography, you have grown women that are made to look like young girls. They're wearing little ponytails and they have like Care Bears and other types of, childlike toys. And these films, which again, this child pornography is $1 billion industry and it's perfectly legal according to the Supreme Court for this to exist. And this is the #1 watched porn in this country, which, of course, there's a really good book. You can the name of the book is called by Gail Dines. It's called Pornland, which talks about how porn, causes pedophilia. But even if you don't subscribe to that, is it a good fucking idea for men to be jerking off to, young girls, scenes of young girls being sexually exploited by young men? I mean, is that really a good idea? Is that a good fucking idea? Like, even if it's just the realm of fantasy, and it's just whatever, just innocent pleasure, and is that really a good idea? Is it a good idea for white men to be jerking off to images of black men enjoying being raped by white men and by Klansmen? Is that a good fucking idea in a society that's based upon slavery and white supremacy? Is that a good idea? In society that, where we have rampant pedophilia and misogyny, is it a good idea for young girls to be displayed in that manner? For the young girls to be peed upon in those films, to be shitted on, to be nutted on, to be called a dirty hoe, a cum dumpster, a whore? Is that a good fucking idea for men to be jerking off to this shit? Is that a good idea? Could it have an effect upon some men? Possibly. You damn right it does. There's a pedophile's manual, and this is $1 billion business. And remember, according to white feminists, this is sexually liberating for women to be peed upon, shitted on, nutted on, smacked, choked, have her be forced to lick a fucking toilet seat. This is sexually liberating for women to be, to be in this type of pedophilia, to be in this type of pedophilic porn. Sexually liberating. Marinate on that for a minute. And if you don't believe a word I say, do your research. Look up pseudo child pornography, read the book Pornland. It talks about all that stuff. You literally have people, that make billions of dollars off this stuff. And it is encouraging pedophilia. It is encouraging it. I wonder if R. Kelly has watched some of that shit. Because what tends to happen with men who watch this pedophilic porn, they watch this and they want to recreate. See, there's a myth put out by the porn industry, which is $1 billion industry, that, it's just fantasy and it's harmless fun and all, but no, it's not. Just like Chris Rock joked a long time ago. He's like, men been watching porn since they were 11 years old. And a lot of men, they want to create this shit. Yes, and that's true. A lot of men, when they watch this pornography, and I can speak on this intimately, because I used to be addicted to porn. Yeah, you're watching it, you're getting aroused to it, and you want to create that in your real life. And, in the porn films, there is no, it's not like it's, the films are being shown in a way that It's like, hey, this is entertainment now. It's not like a documentary, talking about women being violated and triggering some of those negative feelings and make people feel guilty. This is like, no, this is like, oh, you're attracted to young girls. Oh, this is normal. You should indulge in it. Oh, hey, you see Aaliyah. Oh, yeah, yeah, I mean, I don't know if she's a young girl, but hey, she's looking like a grown woman. She's on the top of a car with all these men around her. She's wearing all black, and she's talking about she wants to, she's doing all this gyrating, and she wants somebody who's going to give her 1 in a million. So all this media encourages pedophilia. It causes pedophilia. So I remember thinking that that the media, the white media in particular, they create the problem of pedophilia. They have all these all these images of young girls who are made to look like grown ass women. All these Britney Spears videos and Aaliyah videos, Destiny's Child. All the pseudo pornography that they put out, which the Supreme Court says is legal. They have all these images of young girls. Not only that, but they actually make grown women appear childlike. Again, through all these surgeries that are done increasingly in this country to make women have tighter vaginas, and of course all the whole trend towards shaving the vaginas, to make it look like a young girl. That's a huge trend. All the little waxing, all that came from porn. All that waxing stuff that came from porn. And the perky titties, through the breast implants. Again, they're making grown women look like young girls. So they have all these images, and then when men act out on this shit, when they want to create these fantasies, oh, they're bad. So in a sense, I mean, this is the basis of capitalism. Capitalism creates the problem, and then puts out it's problem, reaction, solution. Capitalism creates the problem, then the media creates the reaction. Oh, my God, black girls, oh, they're getting raped, they're getting exploited, and then they come out with the solution. And it's not just a solution, it's continued mass incarceration of black men, which again, capitalism benefits from everything. They make money off the problem. They make billions of dollars off of all these advertising-based pedophile images, of young girls. They make billions of dollars off porn. They make billions of dollars off of sex trafficking. They make billions of dollars off of giving young girls, birth control. So they make billions off this stuff. They make billions off the reaction, like Lifetime made. I mean, that was like the top Lifetime series ever. They make billions off of this, and they make billions off of penalizing the so-called offenders. Being mass incarceration. Which again, prison is a business. It's a multi-billion-dollar business. They make money on every single layer. This is capitalism at its finest. So they make money on the problem, the reaction, and the solution. So I was like, because I remember, Hollywood, they made a whole film about NWA. And NWA made songs, I think one of their songs they're talking about, oh, she's only 16, she's a hoe. But the bitch, she's only 16 and she's a hoe, but the bitch sucks dick like a certified pro. They made a film like praising black men who made this type of this type of hip hop and music, encouraging pedophilia. They made a whole film praising them, pretty much glorifying them. Of course, ignoring all the crimes of Dr. Dre. Because Dr. Dre is well connected. He's down with Apple and some of those other white billionaires. So he's connected now. So can't really expose him. They'll probably do shit on him later. But for now he's good. He's a safe Negro. He's one of theirs. So they made a whole movie praising NWA. You can check out Beyond Blackface by Lennon Honor, which talks about he did a really good documentary on that. Shout out to Lennon Honor. A really good documentary called Beyond Blackface, talking about NWA and their misogyny and all the really destructive messages and themes of their music. But yeah, it's like, hey, this is they made money off selling that music back in the day, white media. They made money off of, praising NWA. As a matter of fact, I think MC Ran was actually accused and settled out of court for actually raping a girl, during one of their concerts, and the girl got pregnant, and it was pretty well. and the test proved that he was the father. So there you go. I guess he thought, I'll make songs about it. Shit, I can do it. I can engage in pedophilia and rape and sexual assault. It's cool for me to make songs about it. So hey, why not do it in real life? So we live in a culture. This is a $1 billion business. $1 billion business. And I start thinking about, in terms of Black girls, millions of Black girls in this country are sexually abused every single day by their parents. It's known as spanking and corporal punishment. And this is legal in all 50 states. In 19 different states, it's legal for a teacher to spank, to paddle a Black girl on her rear end. And again, this is spanking is a sex act. Okay, it is a sex act. The buttocks is right near the genitals. And whenever, it's extremely, any type of physical violence against children is very destructive. But when you add sex into a mix and the potential for sexual pleasure, it becomes even more destructive, because now in the young girl's mind, she's okay, the hormones that are released are hormones of bonding, oxytocin, the hormones of bonding, the hormones of love, the hormones of connection. So these hormones are being released while she's being spanked, but she's also in pain. So what's that young girl going to internalize then? That, people love you. People who claim to love you abuse you. What the old saying, pain is pleasure. So then these young girls, they get themselves in situations where, men abuse them, and, they feel like, they think that's love. They feel like they deserve it because they've been traumatized and they have low self-esteem as a result of the sexual abuse they experienced as a result of spanking. So that's why, it's very destructive to spank kids on the rear end. Because now, in a sense, abuse becomes a form of sexual pleasure. So that's why, later on in life, a lot of these girls will again find themselves in abusive BDSM type relationships, which get glorified in the media. 50 Shades of Grey. 50 Shades of Grey. That was about a billionaire who found this young girl. I think she was above age, but he was like, in his 50s, and she was like 18. So again, it's the whole power dynamic, and he made her sign a contract. So he can, this guy was a sadist. This wasn't no goddamn 50 Shades of Grey. It's not a love story. It's a story about sexual abuse. It's not, and it wasn't consensual either, because of a huge power dynamic. He's a billionaire. She's some young girl, don't have shit. So naturally, of course, some billionaire promise you, just like in the case of R. Kelly, of course, he preyed upon these young girls and he promised them the world, and then they were forced to call him daddy, to pee in a cup, to pee in a bucket, do all this type of degrading stuff for him, for his benefit. So, when it's R. Kelly, it's abuse, but when it's a white man doing it, it's entertainment. It's 50 Shades, it's 50 Shades of Grey, a $1 billion movie franchise. And no, this is not, that was not a consensual type relationship. Yeah, she might have agreed to it, but there's still an obvious power dynamic. Hence why pedophilia is so bad. Yes, young girls can be sexual. They may desire to have sex. But when you have grown men that, there's a power dynamic. It's abusive, it's coercive. When I'm a billionaire and I'm finding, young girls, young girl, and I'm making her sign a contract to let me beat her. Yeah, there's obviously, I have all this big house, all this wealth. There's a clear power dynamic and an inequality of power in this situation. So, can that really be considered to be a love story or a form of abuse and sexual exploitation? And on his end, on Gray's end, sexual sadism. But again, because a lot of the girls are victims of sexual sadism as children, they seek that out. And it's been shown that, yeah, kids who get spanked, they get aroused off of being, you know, spanked on the ass and engaging in that type of, engaging in S&M type behavior, which I'm not here to judge. I'm just, you know, I'm here to talk about some of the effects of it and how it, you know, because oftentimes many women in particular find themselves in these type of abusive situations later on in life. There's a really good book, Why Does He Do That, by Lundy Bancroft, which talks about how abusive men, you know, oftentimes, you know, that becomes a way that they kind of dominate. You know, abusive men are all about sexual domination. It's all about sexual. I mean, they can't even, like, they don't even want to have sex. And obviously, I mean, since, you know, obvious from watching that series, R. Kelly, like, he probably don't even want to fuck nobody. That's like he just totally owns them and just do whatever he wants to them. Because like in every single story from these women and girls, he was always like sexually degrading them and always wanted to film them. You know, just all this type of, and that is a hallmark of sexual, you know, of abusive men. They use sex as a way of kind of like of degrading, humiliating, and dominating, you know, the people that they abuse. You know, but like I said, I mean, you know, for not to blame the victim, but for girls, you know, who were kind of raised on sexual abuse, on corporal punishment, you know, oftentimes, like I said, it becomes, you know, it becomes like a learned, it's something that people, and that many of these young girls internalize that, you know, they deserve. And again, they're not to blame. I'm not blaming the victim here. I'm not blaming the victim. I'm merely elucidating on that people who are traumatized and people who are abused as children oftentimes get abused as adults, period. People who are abused as kids oftentimes become the abusers themselves. And that's the situation of R. Kelly, which is another thing that oftentimes does not get discussed, is the abuse of Black men and boys at the hands of women. You know, it could be, you know, of course, men do it as well too. But, you know, R. Kelly, you know, he obviously was very traumatized. Very traumatized. You know, he was abused. And again, you know, and I'm sorry, I'm digressing in my ADHD brain. But yes, millions of Black girls are being sexually abused every single day by their parents. And these girls later on in life, according to studies, oftentimes, you know, become victims of abuse themselves. You know, they have poor boundaries. They don't feel comfortable asserting themselves. They feel like, you know, well, he beats me, you know, he does it out of love because what? Oh, my dad used to spank me on the ass. My mommy spanked me on the ass out of love. So it becomes like a self-perpetuating cycle of trauma and abuse. You know, this is perfectly legal. It's perfectly legal for, you know, for school teachers, you know, hundreds of thousands of Black girls get beaten in school systems every single year. In private schools, in 48 states, it's legal. In 48 states, it's legal for kids to be beaten in schools. 48 states, in public and private schools. In all 50 states, child abuse, corporal punishment, sexual abuse, spanking of young children without their consent is perfectly legal, perfectly normal, perfectly acceptable, according to some invisible white man in the sky, as a matter of fact. As people used to, you know, don't spare the rod, spoil the child. Bullshit. Bullshit. You know, it's perfectly acceptable. You know, people justify it in the name of religion. Child abuse. Perfectly normal. You know, in 19 different states, mostly in the former Confederacy, slave-owning states, it's legal for public school teachers to beat kids, and they mostly target Black kids that are disabled and Black kids. And people that are, you know, that were retarded kids get beat. Retarded kids get beat with a paddle. Kids that are on special ed get beat with a paddle. We live in a culture of pedophilia. America eats its young. And if the child is a Black child, then we're definitely going to eat it down. We're definitely going to eat it. We live in a culture of pedophilia. You know, and You know, and it's always funny to me, you know, because the number one form of black on black violence is corporal punishment. The number one form of black on black violence. It's not gun violence. It's not domestic violence. It's corporal punishment. Parents beating their children. But this is praised by Fox News. This is praised by the media. It's like, huh. You know, because whenever black folks get shot by the police, oh, you know, what about black on black violence? You know, there's lynching that occurs. What about black on black violence? You know, they love to use that weak ass black on black violence narrative, as if white on white violence don't happen. They love to use that to kind of deflect. But then, when Adrian Peterson, you know, beats his kid with a switch and hits his penis, these kids need discipline. You know, when a mother in Baltimore beats her kids for riding against police genocide, good. These kids need discipline. It's better than the police, right? White supremacists, and it's always back like, wow, white supremacists praising black adults and parents beating young ones. Why are they praising that? Oh, they benefit from it because it produces more traumatized black kids. You know, and the more traumatized they are, the more likely they are to end up in jail. The more they are to be, to end up in the school to prison pipeline, to be suspended. The more they are to take drugs, have so-called ADHD, oppositional defiant, all these other disorders that children are labeled with, all these psychiatric disorders that oftentimes misdiagnoses. They're really diagnoses of trauma. ADHD is a diagnosis of trauma. It's not no damn brain disorder. The kid is traumatized for whatever reason. He's stressed. He's being abused. He's being bullied. He's traumatized. I know because I was traumatized and I had ADHD. I still suffer with it. And but again, when we're beating our kid, when black folks are beating their kid, that's creating problems. It's going to lead to more domestic violence. It's going to lead to more black on black gun and physical violence. It's going to lead to, so-called juvenile delinquency, so-called misbehavior in the school system. All the things we get criminalized for, all the things we get demonized for. It's going to lead, and it's going to lead, it's a natural progression. If kids are being beaten and sexually abused by being patted on the butt, well, what the hell is stop a parent from taking it to the next step? Okay, well, if I can, if I'm allowed to pat him on the butt, who stopped me from touching his genitals? Again, it's never made sense to me how one thing could be so bad, which it is, so bad and so illegal and so condemnable. But then another thing is like, oh, perfectly, it's like you should do it. If you don't do it, you're a bad parent if you don't beat your kids. It's like, how does one area of violence not naturally lead to another area of violence? If you just think critically about it, it's a natural progression. A man, if you, as an example, a man that beats you will probably sexually degrade you. And as I mentioned, that is a common theme in abusive relationships. There is a lot of sexual degradation, sexual humiliation, sexual domination. A man who beats you, smacks you, calls you a bitch, yeah, he might rape you. It shouldn't come as a surprise. If he rapes you, then he might kill you. It's a natural progression. So because we live in a culture of physical violence against children, which oftentimes entails sexual violence via hitting them on the buttocks, well, yeah, okay. It's a natural progression for adults to feel, and this being perfectly legal for adults to do this. Well, hey, hey, let's, I'm gonna go ahead and touch these children too. Hey, I can hit them and it's perfectly fine. I'm gonna go ahead and touch them. It's a natural progression because we live in a culture of violence against children, particularly against Black children, which benefits and is encouraged by the system of white supremacy. Period. Facts, as they say. Facts. That's it. It's a natural progression. So a lot of people, they feel like, oh, because hey, I'm whooping them, or I'm allowed to whoop them. Kids are considered to be property and allowed to be whipped and beaten and mutilated and all. I ain't even talk about circumcision yet. why, sexual abuse, sexual assault. I ain't even talked about that yet, how millions of boys are being sexually traumatized and sexually abused on their first day of fucking life. I ain't even talk about that. I probably won't even talk about that. That'll be another video. But that's perfectly legal. And that's another example of our culture of pedophilia. So all this is occurring. Well, yeah, okay. A lot of people gonna feel, they're gonna feel empowered. Like, hey, I'm gonna go ahead and touch children. I'm gonna go ahead and rape children. I'm gonna go ahead and assault children, fondle children, molest children, which is what happened to R. Kelly. I'm sure, R. Kelly was beaten. And of course, beaten men oftentimes go on to beat others. When so and of course, sexually abused kids oftentimes go to sexually abuse others as well too. Abuse leads to more fucking abuse. And he was raped by his sister, just like Whitney Houston was raped by her aunt. So it's not just an issue of Black men perpetrating violence in the Black community. It's not. It's bidirectional. Black women do it and Black men do it. And oftentimes we're doing it because of trauma and the abuse that we experienced, and the poverty, and the underemployment, and the unemployment, and the 400 years of sexual abuse that we experienced as a result of slavery and Jim Crow and white supremacy. Doesn't justify anyone's actions. But in order to, if we want to really get to the root cause of these issues, we can't just, we can't just be making, we can't just be latching on to these, all these little anti-Black male propaganda memes and shows. Because right now, as I'm doing this video, there is some young Black girl who's being sexually assaulted, either by her parents, out in the streets, probably right here in Atlanta, out in the streets, over in Africa, somewhere it's happening. And oftentimes it ain't the Black man's fault either. So, we really have to start really looking at this, critically, and, from a more open-minded perspective. Because yeah, it's not, I'm sorry to tell you, it's not, look, there's a lot of Black men Black boys being raped by grown Black women. There's a lot of Black girls being raped and sexually abused and assaulted by grown Black women. So this whole narrative about, Black men being there, they want to rape Black women and girls and they're precious of Black, it's bullshit. It's white supremacy cloaked under the veil of it's white supremacy. It's white supremacy essentially, but now it's cloaked under the veil of gender politics, intersectional politics, and Black feminism. But it's bullshit, because Black women are perpetrating abuse too. They are, and not all Black women, of course. No, not all. Definitely not. But there are many that are. So, I think, who said it best? It's one of those Black Panthers, I would never expect the white media to tell, the story about Black people, something like that. Basically, they're always going to lie. They're always going to distort the truth and distort the reality. And if we're really serious about protecting our girls, then we're going to have to deal with the reality, the harsh reality that, yes, our girls are being oppressed and being sexually abused, by the media. By the music industry. You have Black girls being sexualized in the media. They're twerking and they're wearing half-naked clothing, which encourages and glorifies and normalizes their sexual abuse, sexual exploitation. And again displays them as sex objects, willing and ready for any type of sexual contact, and basically, it justifies their abuse. It justifies it. It normalizes it. It makes people think that the black women want it. All these videos where Black women are wearing, they're dressed up as animals. Again, the old stereotype that Black women are sexual animals. Because again, Black people are considered to be apes. That's the dominant. We're not considered to be humans. We're considered to be monkeys and apes. So again, we're gonna have to really, if we're serious about our girls, which hey, I'm all for. I'm not against. I'm not against, you know, the focus being on black girls. That's cool. That's cool. But let's just tell a true story about what's going on with black girls. Black girls, like I said, most black girls are being abused by their parents. They're being abused by their loved ones. They're being spanked. They're being spanked in schools. They're being spanked by their parents. They're being molested by their aunties, and sometimes by their uncles. A lot of times, uncles are in jail or are killed. So yeah, black girls, they're being abused. They're being trafficked. They're being trafficked by the police. Okay, so that's why, like I said, it goes deep. The system is controlled, as I mentioned. I discussed Disney. And of course, Disney. A lot of these Disney films, they glorify pedophilia. They even show pedophilia. And of course, a lot of those child actors. You can watch a really good film called The Open Secret. A lot of these child actors, pretty much Hollywood is controlled by pedophiles. A really good film called The Open Secret talks about that. Hollywood is controlled by pedophiles. Period. Point blank. So a lot of those childhood actors, Justin Timberlake and Miley Cyrus, 9 times out of 10, they were abused. They were sexually abused. I think even Courtney Love. Courtney Love was one of them one of them little Disney Club shows. She was sexually abused. A lot of people say that she was actually they mind controlled Courtney Love, and that's why she was involved in the killing of Kurt Cobain. Which there's a really good documentary on that. Can't think the name of it now, but it came out. It was on Netflix. We talked about how Kurt Cobain was actually killed, and it was Courtney Love that was actually involved in it. But yeah, there's a lot of people. John Potash. He wrote the book Drugs as Weapons Against Us. He talks about how Courtney Love might have been mind controlled by these elite pedophile rings. There's a lot goes on, but pretty much all our politicians are pedophiles. They're all pedophiles. They're involved in all these pedophile rings. The police are involved in pedophile rings. The police are actually, heavily involved in sex trafficking. They're heavily involved in pedophilia. Heavily involved. I mean, there was a cop recently right outside here, I think in Alpharetta, right outside of Atlanta, who was arrested for having child pornography. And yeah. So, I think even in the city of Oakland, they had this young girl who the entire police department was literally just gang raping this girl. They found this young prostitute, and they told her, hey, pretty much we're gonna pimp you out, and if you don't allow us to, we're gonna put you in jail. She was a young runaway child, something a disadvantaged child, and the police preyed upon her. They told her, hey, you're gonna ain't no fun unless we all get some. As the Snoop Dogg song went. It ain't no fun if the homies can't have none. So yeah, the homies, because the police are a gang, they gang raped this girl, pretty much. She used to go to different cops' homes to serve them up. And it was well known that, since she was a prostitute and she was originally arrested as, she was originally, encountered by the police as a prostitute or engaging in an activity, that, hey, if you didn't comply, then we're going to take you in. So yeah, the police are heavily involved in the rape of black girls, heavily involved. And they have the right to do it. Who's going to police the police? Who's going to stop the police? They're heavily involved in sex trafficking. They're actually, and even when you look at their, the number one complaint against police after, being beaten upside the head or shot is sex crimes. And the police have the highest rates of domestic violence. So yeah, what, you think all these little pat downs and frisks are about, finding drugs? No, it's about sexual assault. So yes, the police are out raping black women and girls right now. There was a recent story about some black girls in the school system. Again, I was just talking about the school system. They were, these girls were, they were strip searched. They were strip searched. Excuse me, tongue twister there. They were strip searched in New York, right outside, somewhere in New York, because they were acting like they were hyper. They were, they were hyper, just being kids. They were hyper, having fun, hanging out with the girls, and the school principal and the school officials brought them in and strip searched these girls and took off their bra, and strip searched them, sexually assaulted them, pretty much. Because when you strip search someone, that's a form of torture. So, yeah, all these, all these black women being, being strip searched by the TSA and, undergoing all these pat downs. 'Cause a lot of these TSA workers, they're, a lot of these TSA workers are engaging in sexual assault. They're attracted to the same sex, or maybe they're not attracted to the same sex. Regardless, they're engaged in sexual assault. A pat down is sexual assault. This is the culture we live in. I can go on. I mean, so you have your politicians that are pedophiles, police that are pedophiles, judges, they're doing the same. They're pedophiles, sex trafficking. So, who's gonna stop the pedophilia? How can pedophiles stop pedophilia? How can Donald Trump, when he used to fly on airplanes with a billionaire pedophile, and that billionaire pedophile was protected by Donald Trump's Secretary of Labor, who's also responsible for combating human trafficking, how can that be stopped? How can pedophiles police pedophiles? It's not going to happen. So it's no surprise R. Kelly was able to do what he did for years. Like, he was making money for all these corporations. So they didn't give a fuck. Like, what are you going to do with me? I mean, the white executive admitted it in the series. He was like, well, he's raping girls and doing all this stuff to girls, but he's making money. So shit, keep pushing the step in the name of love. Goddammit, fuck them girls. I mean, that was their mentality. They didn't give a damn. But now that he's washed up and, and he ain't making shit, and they probably want his masters, and they want to, take back some of his wealth, and, they want to own some more of his shit and make him go bankrupt in order so they can control his music until infinity. Hey, let's make all this shit happen now. Let's dig up all this dirt about him. White supremacy will prop you up and then bring you down, and make money when they prop you up, and make money when they bring you down. Yeah, so and no surprise that no surprise, yeah, because the whole music industry is filled with that. A lot of those music entertainers involved in they're engaging in pedophilia. The Hollywood pedophilia. So, it's and also, and R. Kelly had police officers in his back pocket. He had the Chicago PD in his back pocket. So whenever a parent want to file a complaint, like, hey, just want to check on my daughter, see if she's okay, make sure she's fine. The police were there. Hey, R. Kelly, you got to have a wellness visit. Someone's gonna come to your studio. Okay, yeah, all right, yeah, I appreciate it. You gonna see? I got free tickets to the show, right? Okay, appreciate that. Yeah, there you go. Because the police are, they're pedophiles, and the police, see, the police. There's a huge misnomer. The police are here to protect and serve, which, according to the Supreme Court, they're not here to do that. You have no constitutional right to being protected and served by them. So they're under no obligation to protect and serve you. The police are actually here to protect and serve criminals. That's what they're originally invented for. They protected and served the slave masters and protected the crime of slavery, from their advent. And then later on, in 1880, in the early 1800s, when they came about in some of these major cities, they were here to protect the organized criminals, the drug dealers, the pimps. Essentially, the police were a protectionist racket. They were a protectionist racket. They were a gang that protected some of the other organized gangs in some of these major cities. So they've always done that. They protect and serve the people who have money, the people who have property, and sometimes that property is our young girls. So they're going to protect them. R. Kelly's property was those girls. So the Chicago PD did their job and protected R. Kelly, because they're not here to protect the residents of Chicago. They're here to protect, the criminals. That's what they've always done. Always done. The police are a protection racket. They are here to protect and serve criminals. That's what they're here to do. And the police, and even some of them don't go off intentionally doing it. They're easily bribed, because they're the ones that enforce the law. They are the law. So if you can own the law, then you're good. You can do whatever you want. And R. Kelly obviously did for years. But again, that's what police do. They protect and serve corporations, organized criminals, drug dealers. They arrest the low-level drug dealers so they can prop up the big-level drug dealers. They arrest all the major organized crime factions. I think the film American Gangster with Denzel Washington talked about that. NYPD was protecting him for the longest. As long as, hey, the drug dealers slide him, give him a little payback, a little cut, do what you want. Not my business. Particularly in black neighborhoods. In black neighborhoods, I was reading a really good book called The Color of Law. On my trip to Ghana as well too, and it was talking about how, like in black neighborhoods, you had prostitution houses, you had all different types of criminal enterprises that it was perfectly fine, and all these little gambling houses, prostitution houses, drug houses, and that was cool. It was like the neighborhoods were actually zoned to allow that. And those actually like decreased the home values in those neighborhoods. But in those white neighborhoods, no, you can't. No, we can't have no prostitution houses. We can't have no gambling houses. We can't have all these liquor stores. But in black neighborhoods, you can. So, just my take. I know I've been rambling on. But yeah, we live in a culture of pedophilia, and it's sad. It's sad that. So many girls, and boys are being abused, and it's sad. But it just shows how, fundamentally on the fundamental level, how sick our society is, and how, this society can't be reformed. It has to be destroyed. It can't be reformed. It can't be reformed. And like I said, given that the rape of black girls has been the basis of Western civilization via slavery and the slave trade, and now via our globalized death economy, via what's going on in the Congo, our black girls ain't never gonna matter in this society, in this economy. I'm sorry, y'all. Hate to be bearer of bad news, but that's just the plain old sad reality. They ain't never gonna matter. So that's it. Thank you for listening, tuning in. Please share this video. I'm plan on making more videos. It's my second live video, so please forgive me if this sound, if nothing's perfect. This came from the heart. It's like a freestyle here. So, but I felt like I really wanted to kind of add my 2 cents to this. So, but yeah, please share this. Like me on YouTube, hit the little bell so you can get notifications when I make videos, when I upload them, when I go live. Check out my website, drcurtisduncan.com. I talk about a lot of the pharmaceutical pedophilia that goes on, because they're the biggest pedophiles, all these doctors and psychiatrists and just the whole pharmaceutical industry. And doctors and psychiatrists themselves actually are some of the biggest sexual abusers as well too. And but they have a license to sexually abuse. Don't think, when you go to a doctor, these little pediatricians and they want to be looking at your daughter's genitals, for STD, it's just some little sexual sadism and assault and abuse going on there. A lot of women are being sexually abused by these doctors out here. So, but yeah, definitely please subscribe, share, go to the website, and thank you again for tuning in. Y'all enjoy the rest of your evening, and peace and blessings to you all.